The morning sun poured golden light across the vast training field of the Colorado Canine Police Academy. Rows of officers stood at attention in crisp uniforms, while their canine partners sat obediently by their sides. Today was graduation day, a true moment of pride, of transformation. These weren't just dogs anymore. They were protectors, trained to run into danger when everyone else ran out. Among them sat Titan, a sleek, powerful German shepherd with sharp amber eyes and a commanding presence. His handler, Officer Megan Riley, stood beside him, one gloved, hand resting gently on his back. She wore her badge like armor, and her pride like a second skin. Today wasn't just the end of training. It was the start of a partnership she'd worked a lifetime for. Megan had always wanted to be a K-9 officer. She grew up in a home with a father who was a police lieutenant and a mother who worked as an emergency dispatcher. But it wasn't until she saw her first K-9 demonstration as a teenager, watching a dog take down a suspect with laser focus, that her dream snapped into place. She didn't want just any badge. She wanted one with a leash in her hand and a partner at her side. From day one at the academy, Titan had been a standout. He wasn't just intelligent, he was intuitive. He learned commands faster than any dog in his cohort. He could detect narcotics buried in layers of steel and find a buried scent trail hours after it was laid. In bite work, he was ferocious. In obedience, flawless. The instructors began calling him the Ghost because he moved so smoothly. So quietly, it was like watching a shadow with purpose. Still, Titan wasn't a machine, he was something more. There was a spark in him, something even the trainers couldn't quite put their finger on. "He's got heart," one of the senior instructors, a grizzled veteran named Hank Mendez, had said one evening as he watched Titan track a scent through pouring rain. And that kind of dog doesn't just follow orders, he understands them, maybe even questions them. Megan laughed at that. "I'd prefer if he didn't question me in the middle of a high-stakes operation." But Hank didn't laugh back. He just looked at Titan, who was sitting perfectly still, eyes scanning the field like a soldier. One day he might just save your life by not listening. Now, standing in the line during the ceremony, those words echoed faintly in Megan's memory. The PA system crackled. "Officer Megan Riley and K-9 Titan, please step forward." Applause rippled through the crowd as Megan walked forward with Titan at her side, head held high. The department's chief pinned the gold K-9 badge onto Titan's harness, while a small girl in the front row giggled as the dog licked her hand. "Good boy," Megan whispered under her breath. Titan didn't flinch. His ears perked forward, eyes locked on hers. It was like he understood this wasn't just a badge, it was a promise. A few minutes later, the national anthem began to play. The dogs were trained to sit through it calmly. But as the music played, Titan did something unusual. At the exact moment the final note played, he barked once, clear, strong, and proud. The crowd laughed, applauded again. Even the chief smiled. "Looks like someone's ready for duty," he said. But as the celebration continued, the old instructor, Hank, watched silently from the edge of the field. He wasn't smiling. He simply watched Titan, eyes narrowed, thoughtful. "He's different," he murmured to himself. And he was right. In just a few days, Titan would break every rule he'd ever been taught, and in doing so, he would become a hero the world never saw coming. 4 days. That's all it took. Just 4 days. After graduation, Officer Megan Riley and Titan were jolted into their first major call. No warm-up, no routine patrols, straight into the deep end. It came through dispatch at 3:16 p.m., right as Megan and Titan were grabbing a quick break behind the precinct building. All units respond to silent alarm triggered at Arcotech Industrial. Possible. B&E, unconfirmed presence of intruders. Units proceed with caution. Megan looked down at Titan. He was already alert, ears pricked, muscles coiled, eyes locked on the cruiser. No need for a command. He was ready. The drive to the warehouse was short but tense. Megan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Arcotech had been shut down for nearly a year after a series of internal investigations and layoffs. It was the kind of place you didn't wander into by accident. Abandoned, rusted over, and sprawling with dead machinery. It was perfect for trouble. As they pulled up, 2 other patrol cars were already parked near the west entrance. Officer Keene, an older cop with 18 years under his belt, waved Megan. "Over. Alarm went off 20 minutes ago," he said. "No windows broken, but that gate's been tampered with. Place has blind spots, no active security. Could be kids, could be something worse." "Any signs of movement?" Megan asked. Keene shook his head. "Place gives me the creeps, and—" He paused. "Dispatch just updated. We've got a potential missing child case. 7-year-old girl from 2 blocks away. Last seen near this property." That changed everything. Megan crouched next to Titan, checking his gear. "Okay, boy," she whispered. "This isn't a drill." Titan growled quietly, his nose lifted to the air, sniffing. Megan gave him the silent command to stay at her side. They moved cautiously through the main gate, weapons holstered but hands ready. The warehouse was massive. Rows of forgotten machines, rusted steel parts and cracked cement floors that echoed with every step. Something felt off. Titan's body was tense. His ears kept twitching toward the far right wall. Megan noticed it, but kept moving slowly, eyes scanning corners. They hadn't made it 20 feet inside when Titan froze. Not like before. This was different. He wasn't just still. He was locked. His nostrils flared, his pupils dilated, his tail lowered, but his back stiffened. He let out a low guttural growl, not loud but primal. Warning. Danger was near. Megan immediately whispered, "Hold position." Titan didn't move. She repeated the command, this time with more authority. "Heel, now." That's when it happened. Titan. He ignored her. In a flash, he darted to the right, his leash slipping from her grip, moving faster than Megan had ever seen. He zigzagged between crates, barking sharply once, then going silent as he disappeared behind a stack of rotting pallets. "Titan, stop!" Megan shouted, heart racing. The other officers turned toward the noise. "What's going on?" Keene barked. "He broke from command," Megan said, stunned. "He's gone rogue." She'd trained with Titan for over a year. He'd never, ever ignored her like that. Not once. A storm of thoughts raced through her head. Had something gone wrong with his training? Was he triggered by something? Was he putting himself and others in danger? She ran after him, gun drawn, calling into her radio. "K9 has moved on instinct. I'm following. Stay sharp." The warehouse swallowed her in shadows. Somewhere ahead, Titan barked again. This time sharper. Urgent. Then silence. A deep, heavy silence that made Megan's stomach twist. She rounded the corner, weapon raised, and what she saw next made her heart stop, cold. Titan had found something, and whatever it wasn't good. Megan's boots pounded against the cold concrete floor, her breath coming in short bursts as she pushed deeper into the warehouse maze. The only sound was the rapid beat of her heart and the fading echo of Titan's last bark. This wasn't supposed to happen. Titan never broke command. He was bred and trained for obedience, drilled for discipline. There were protocols for every situation, but this, a dog going off script in a possible armed situation, it was dangerous, reckless. And yet, something in Megan told her not to call him back again. "Where are you, Titan?" she whispered, eyes darting across the shadows. She rounded a massive stack of old conveyor belts and froze. There he was, motionless, crouched low, barely breathing. Titan's eyes were fixed on a rusted steel door set into the wall. His ears twitched, his lips curled slightly, a low growl humming in his throat like an engine building pressure. Megan approached slowly, crouched beside him. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. Titan didn't look at her. His entire body was aimed at the door, locked in on something behind it. The door was small, unmarked, almost hidden beneath peeling paint and grime. It wasn't on any schematic of the building that Megan had seen. And yet, Titan had found it in seconds. Her radio crackled to life. "Unit 3, status update. Any sign of the suspect?" She pressed her earpiece. "Unit 3, I'm at the far east quadrant. K9 has identified something behind a concealed door. Possible contact. Proceeding with caution." As she reached for the handle, Titan let out a single bark. Short, loud, warning, then silence again. Megan's heart pounded, as she slowly twisted the rusted knob. The door creaked open. Inside was a small room, dimly lit by a flickering utility lamp on the floor. The air was heavy, foul. Her eyes adjusted quickly, and what she saw made her blood turn to ice. Her girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, duct tape across her mouth, wrists bound to the arms of a metal chair, dirt smudged her cheeks. Her eyes, wide, terrified, locked onto Megan's with silent desperation, and next to her, a man, late 30s. Unshaven, pale, holding a knife. He turned the moment the door opened, startled, but fast. He lunged toward the girl like a cornered animal, blade raised. Megan didn't have time to shout. She didn't need to. Titan exploded into motion with a roar that echoed like thunder. The dog launched forward, barreling into the man's side. The force of impact sent both crashing to the floor. The knife clattered across the cement. The man screamed as Titan pinned him down with primal fury, his jaws inches from the man's throat. "Titan! Hold!" Megan barked. Instantly, Titan stopped, still growling, but motionless, teeth bared. Megan rushed in, kicked the knife away and pulled her cuffs. She yanked the man's arms behind his back and secured him in seconds, adrenaline screaming in her veins. The girl whimpered softly as Megan knelt beside her, gently pulling the tape from her mouth. "You're safe now," she whispered. "He can't hurt you." The girl looked at Titan with awe. "The dog. He found me," she said, her voice cracked and dry. Megan felt a lump rise in her throat. That disobedience had just saved a life. Backup arrived minutes later, but the scene had already been contained. The suspect was in custody. The girl, identified as the missing child from earlier, was in Megan's arms, shivering, but safe. And Titan. He sat beside her like a statue, eyes calm, as if nothing had happened. But Megan knew better. Something had happened. Titan hadn't just ignored her command, he had overruled it, and in doing so, he'd done something no officer or training manual could have predicted. He'd followed his own instinct, and it had led him straight to the truth. The warehouse was no longer silent. Red and blue lights spun across the broken windows as squad cars surrounded the building. Officers moved with purpose. Tape was strung, radios buzzed, reports were logged. But in the eye of the storm, one scene stood still. Officer Megan Riley crouched beside a rescued girl, her hand resting gently on the fur of the dog who made it all possible. Titan stood beside them, head high, gaze steady. His chest rose and fell with calm, measured breaths. Not a trace of fear, not a trace of hesitation. Just focus. The same focus that led him here. The little girl clung to Megan's side, her voice a whisper. "He was going to hurt me if you hadn't come." Megan wrapped her jacket around her and looked her in the eyes. "He didn't save you alone. Titan did." The girl blinked at the shepherd. "He's not just a dog." Megan smiled. "No, he's not." The suspect, now in cuffs and bleeding from a gash on his shoulder where Titan had struck, was being dragged to a squad car. He was ranting, shouting slurs, trying to twist away, but no one paid him much mind. What mattered was the room he'd been hiding in, the one even officers had missed. The detectives arrived shortly after. One of them, Lieutenant Harris, a no-nonsense veteran with deep lines on his face, walked into the storage room with a flashlight. He turned in a slow circle, examining the surroundings. "You realize we never would have checked this room," he said. "There's no sign of it on the blueprints, hidden under layers of renovation from years back. This guy must have set it up as some kind of trap." Megan nodded, still kneeling by Titan. "And Titan found it in seconds." Harris looked at her. "You said he ignored your command." She hesitated. "Yeah, I told him to heal. He ran instead." "And you followed?" "I trusted him." Harris whistled low. "That's a dangerous decision." She didn't argue. She knew what it looked like on paper. Her K9 partner had gone off command in a high-risk situation. For all anyone knew, that could have cost lives. But the truth was clearer than ever. Titan hadn't disobeyed. He had sensed something. Something no human could. Smell, fear, danger, the girl's scent. Something deep in his DNA had told him what. No amount of training could teach. This child needed him, and he wasn't about to wait for permission. Another officer approached Megan with a clipboard. "We'll need a full incident report. There's already chatter about reviewing the K9 unit's decision-making protocols." Megan nodded, but her mind wasn't on the paperwork. She was staring at Titan, who had now laid down, paws crossed, as if the day hadn't just turned him into a city-wide hero. She leaned in close and whispered, "What made you go there, boy?" Titan looked up, eyes soft and steady. She didn't need him to answer. Whatever it was, instinct, heart, something greater, she knew in that moment that Titan hadn't made a mistake. He had made a choice. Later, as the girl was carried into an ambulance for medical care and Megan gave her final statements to the on-scene commander, something strange happened. The girl asked to see Titan one more time. They brought him to her, and she reached into her little jacket pocket and pulled out a tiny, folded piece of paper. It was a drawing, scribbled in shaky crayon. A brown dog with a big heart in its chest, standing between a little girl and a shadowy figure. "This is him," she whispered. "This is what he did." Megan stared at it for a long time, holding back tears, because no one, no superior, no rulebook, no panel review could argue with that. Titan hadn't just saved a life. He had seen what no one else could, and he'd acted, not because he was told to, but because deep down, he knew it was right. By the next morning, the headlines had already spread. Police K9 rescues missing girl in abandoned warehouse. Hero dog disobeys command, saves life. Titan, the wonder dog, one officer's instinct, one dog's bravery. The media loved it. News crews swarmed the precinct, hoping to capture a photo of the German shepherd with the golden eyes. Social media flooded with hashtags like Titan the hero and Good Boy Gone Great. Within hours, the story was viral, but inside the department, the mood was different. While the public celebrated, the internal review board called for an investigation. Megan sat stiffly in the small, windowless interview room. A voice recorder blinked red in front of her, and two internal affairs officers stared her down across the table. "So, let's go over it again," one of them said, his voice neutral. "At what time did your K9 partner first break protocol?" Megan exhaled slowly. "Approximately 1541. I gave the heel command. Titan disobeyed and bolted ahead toward the concealed door, and you chose to pursue instead of recalling him. I attempted a second command. He ignored it again. But I trusted his behavior. It was clear he had detected something, someone, in distress. I followed him." The second officer tapped his pen. "Officer Riley, are you aware that K9 units acting outside verbal control during active calls can be deemed a liability?" She nodded. "Yes, I'm aware. And if there had not been a child in that room? If the suspect had panicked and killed her during the rush? If Titan had misread the situation, injured an innocent?" Megan's jaw tightened. But he didn't. He was right. "That's not the question, officer." There was a pause. The air was thick with unspoken tension. The first officer leaned forward. "We're not questioning the outcome. But if we approve what happened, we set a precedent that disobedience can be overlooked if it works out. That's dangerous." Megan clenched her hands. She wanted to scream, "He saved a little girl's life." But she knew better than to lose composure. Meanwhile, down in the K9 kennels, Titan lay silently in his pen. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He waited, calm as ever, like he knew something bigger was happening. Outside, kids gathered with handmade signs hoping to meet the dog who had become a symbol of hope overnight. But higher up, things were heating. Later that day, Megan was called into the captain's office. Captain Laura Morales was a sharp, fair woman who commanded respect with every word. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the storm of reporters outside. "I've read the file, seen the footage," she said without turning. "The child. 'Tis safe. That's a win. But the brass isn't happy about the method." Megan stayed silent. Captain Morales turned to face her. "You're not in trouble yet, but they've scheduled a full behavioral re-evaluation for Titan. If he fails, they'll pull him from field duty, maybe retire him early." The words hit Megan like a gut punch. "What? He did everything right." Morales sighed. "So you and I both know that. But rules are rules. You trained him to obey. If he stops doing that, they'll say he's unpredictable. He's not a threat, Megan said firmly. He's exceptional. He sensed what no human could. That's not a flaw, that's brilliance. But Morales only said, "Prepare your defense, you'll need it." As Megan left the office, she passed the glass enclosure where Titan now rested. Their eyes met. There was no fear in his gaze, just quiet loyalty. He didn't know that people were questioning him. He only knew one thing. He had done what he was meant to do. But Megan knew what was coming. A test, not just for Titan, for her, for trust, for the very idea that sometimes the right thing isn't always by the book. And the worst part? If Titan failed the next evaluation, he'd be removed from her forever. The evaluation room was sterile and hollow, like a courtroom without a jury, yet every move was being judged. Titan sat calmly beside Megan in the center of the K9 training complex. 3 evaluators sat behind a long table, their clipboards ready. 2 were department veterans. The third, Dr. Lydia Kessler, was a behavioral psychologist flown in from a neighboring city. She specialized in assessing canine temperament and cognitive instinct. She didn't smile. None of them did. Megan, in full uniform, stood with her back straight, her hand resting on Titan's harness. Captain Morales watched from a viewing window. Above, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Begin," the lead evaluator instructed. The test was brutal. Over the next hour, Titan was subjected to a barrage of high-pressure simulations, gunfire sound effects, hostile shouting, sudden moving dummies, dressed as suspects. Each was designed to test obedience, focus, and discipline under stress. Titan performed flawlessly. Every command Megan gave, sit, heel, hold, track, was followed without hesitation. His eyes remained locked on her, his tail low, ears up, movements sharp. The trainers whispered to each other, marking notes on their clipboards. But Megan could feel it. They weren't just watching Titan, they were watching her. Then came the final simulation, a recreation of the warehouse scenario. The evaluators instructed Megan to walk Titan past a series of closed doors. Behind one door, a hidden actor, pretending to be a child, was instructed to quietly cry for help. Titan was not to react unless commanded. This was the moment that would decide everything. They reached the hallway. Titan sniffed the air. His ears twitched, nose lifted slightly. Megan knew the signs. He sensed something. His body tightened. Low growl built in his throat. "No," Megan whispered, placing a gentle hand on his back. "Not yet." Titan looked up at her, conflicted. The instinct was there, raw and alive. But this time, he obeyed. He held his ground, silent, still, waiting for her word. Megan gave the signal, and then he lunged forward, barking to indicate distress behind the third door. The evaluators nodded. One of them even raised an eyebrow, impressed. But it wasn't over. Dr. Kessler stepped forward. "We've completed the obedience testing, but I'd like to do something a little different." Megan blinked. "Different how?" "I want to observe Titan without you," Kessler said. "You'll wait in the viewing room. We want to see if his instincts are driven by training alone, or if there's something else." Megan hesitated. "He's never been separated from me in an unknown environment." "Exactly," said Kessler, as if that proved her point. Megan gave Titan a hand signal to stay and stepped out. What happened next changed everything. From behind the one-way glass, Megan watched as Kessler brought in another actor, a man dressed to resemble the original warehouse suspect. The man pretended to drag a small doll toward a shadowed corner while yelling threats. Titan didn't wait. He charged, not recklessly, but strategically. He blocked the actor's path, growling, snarling, positioning himself between the child and the threat. Kessler called out, testing various commands. Titan didn't listen, because they weren't Megan's, but he didn't attack either. Instead, he held the line protective, focused, clear-eyed. Dr. Kessler stood there, stunned. 10 minutes later, back in the viewing room, she faced Megan with a different tone. "I've tested over 100 K9s across the state," she said. "Most are trained, some are brilliant, but Titan—" She paused. He's something else. What does that mean? Megan asked, her heart thudding. Kessler looked at her carefully. He's not just obeying patterns. He chooses the right action based on context, emotion, instinct. That's rare, almost unheard of. Megan frowned. So is that good or bad? Kessler's voice dropped to a near whisper. It means he's more than a service dog. A pause. It means he might be sentient. The word sentient echoed through Megan's mind like a gunshot in a canyon. She sat alone in the precinct's rooftop garden, eyes staring blankly over the city's skyline. The buzz of the media had only grown louder. Now it wasn't just about a heroic rescue. It was about a question that was making people uncomfortable. Could a dog think, decide, feel like us? Dr. Kessler's final report had leaked, at least in part. It included phrases that set the internet on fire, demonstrated autonomous decision-making, acted outside training with moral clarity, highly rare cognitive behavior in non-human subjects, and the word everyone kept circling back to, sentience. Megan hadn't said a word publicly since the test. She didn't want to turn Titan into a symbol. He wasn't a debate. He was her partner, her best friend, her hero. But others weren't. As quiet. The media devoured it. Philosophers, scientists, and animal rights groups chimed in. Social media platforms were ablaze with questions. If a dog is sentient, does it have rights? Should canine units even exist if they can choose their actions? Are we making these animals tools or partners? Back at the station, things were boiling over. Some officers supported Megan and Titan, offering quiet nods in the hallway or messages that said, "You two did good." Others weren't so sure. "What happens the next time a dog decides a command's not worth following?" one officer muttered. "Where does that leave the rest of us?" "Yeah," another said. "What if he decides we're the threat next?" Time! Megan felt the shift happening day by day, not against her directly, but around her and worse, around Titan. That night she got a call from Captain Morales. "Come to my office. It's urgent." Megan arrived to find the captain pacing behind her desk, a sealed manila folder in her hand. "What's going on?" Megan asked. Morales didn't look up right away. When she did, her expression was unreadable. "There's pressure. City Council. Legal teams, even federal interest. Titan's case has opened a door no one was prepared for." Megan's chest tightened. "What kind of pressure?" Morales slid the folder across the desk. Inside was a document marked, "Reassignment Order, K9 Titan. Subject to indefinite behavioral observation under third-party control. Effective immediately." Megan's heart dropped. "They're taking him," she said, barely able to breathe. "They want to study him." Morales nodded solemnly. "They say it's temporary, just until they determine if he's safe, controllable, and—" her voice hardened. "Understood." "No," Megan said, standing. "He saved a child. He protected this city. He doesn't deserve to be locked away like a lab rat." "I agree," Morales said quietly. "But this is bigger than us now. They're afraid, not of Titan hurting anyone, but of what he represents. A being that follows instinct over instruction, that thinks before obeying, that terrifies people." Megan paced, fury boiling inside. "Then we fight it." Morales looked at her. "There may be a way." "What is it?" The captain leaned forward. "An appeal, one shot. You'll stand before the city's review board next week. Make your case. Why Titan should stay with you. Stay in service. But you'll need proof, not just emotion." Megan glanced down at the document, then out the window where she saw Titan in the canine yard, sitting peacefully under the trees. Proof? She had all the proof she needed. Titan wasn't just a dog, he was a soul. And if she didn't fight for him now, no one else would. The courtroom wasn't built for this kind of hearing. It wasn't a criminal trial, and yet the silence felt like one. Reporters packed the back rows. Cameras were banned, but everyone knew the story would go public the moment the hearing ended. People didn't just care about the outcome now. They were holding their breath for it. Megan Riley stood at the center of the room in full-dress uniform. Her heart thundered beneath the polished fabric. She had practiced her statement 100 times. But now, as she looked at the panel of 7 officials, including legal advisors, city council members, and one emotionless representative from the Department of Public Safety. She felt her voice almost fail her. Beside her sat Titan, no leash, no muzzle, just trust. The panel chair, a grey-haired woman with sharp eyes, tapped her gavel. "Officer Riley, you may proceed." Megan stepped forward. Her voice was steady but raw. "Ladies and gentlemen, I won't waste your time repeating the story you've already read. You know the facts. You know that Titan broke protocol. You know he disobeyed my command." There was a stir in the room. "And you also know," she continued, "that his actions led directly to the rescue of a kidnapped child, that he found a hidden door no human noticed, that he faced danger head-on without hesitation, not because I told him to, but because he knew it was right." She paused. "That's what makes this moment so hard. Because you're not here to judge a mistake. You're here to judge something you can't explain, something science hasn't caught up with. You're here to decide if a creature like Titan, who acts not just on training but on instinct, on choice, should still be considered a tool or a partner." Murmurs rippled across the audience. She pressed on, eyes locking with each panel member. "You want proof? You already have it. Titan passed every evaluation. He protected without attacking. He obeyed when it mattered. But more. And then that he understood. He chose to protect the weak even when ordered otherwise. That's not disobedience, that's courage." She stepped back, her eyes shining. "I trust Titan with my life, and that child he saved, she trusts him with hers. So the real question isn't whether he's safe to serve. It's whether we are brave enough to accept what he is." She returned to her seat. The room stayed silent for a long beat. Then the panel retreated behind closed doors. It felt like hours. Titan rested his head on her foot as she waited. Finally, the gavel struck again. The chairwoman rose. "This board has reviewed the evidence, consulted our behavioral expert, and considered the testimony." Megan held her breath. "It is the decision of this board that K9 Titan shall not be removed from field service." Gasps. Applause. Relief. Titan looked up as Megan dropped to her knees and hugged him, burying her face in his fur. His tail thumped. Gently. The chairwoman wasn't finished. "However," she added, "we also recommend a new classification, one that recognizes exceptional K9s like Titan not merely as tactical units, but as decision-capable partners. This classification may lead to national reform in K9 law enforcement." Megan smiled through tears. Titan wasn't just staying, he was changing the system. Outside, the crowd waited. As Megan and Titan stepped through the courthouse doors, they were met with a storm of cheers. Children held handmade signs. News anchors rushed forward, but Megan said nothing. She simply knelt beside Titan, whispered, "You did it," and let the world witness what real partnership looked like. From that day forward, Titan wasn't just a dog. He was a symbol of something greater, of instinct, of loyalty, and of courage that defied command. Because sometimes the bravest hearts don't need permission to do what's right.